Welcome back. This is your host, Noura Al-Masri, and this is Echoes of Impact with Noura. I'm really excited to talk to my friend. She is the attorney, Josie. She's going to talk to you about what to do if you have to eventually go to court because of the IRS problem. Because, like I said before, sometimes you can just work with a tax professional. Sometimes you will need an EA, enrolled agent. Sometimes you have to go to court. And the only person who can go with you to the court is actually a tax attorney. And this is why we have today my friend, Josie Walton, and she's going to actually talk to you about that. Welcome to the show, Josie. How are you doing today?
Good, Nora. How you doing? Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And actually, people need to hear from you, especially now. A lot of people are getting those tax notices. And I've actually had like few people connecting with me that they said they reached the tax court. And like when I get someone like that, I give them your number because out of our hands now, it's in your it's with you. So tell them a little bit about you, your business, before we get into the details.
Okay, sure. Like she said, I'm Josie Harris Walton. I'm a tax attorney with QPWB. We are a mostly insurance defense, but I also ran a tax division here at QPWB. We represent taxpayers, individuals, high net worth individuals, corporations who have either they have a notice of deficiency, which we'll talk about in a minute, where they have to petition the tax court within 90 days, or they actually have paid their tax liability and they want to get reimbursed for that, get a refund for those taxes, and the IRS has denied their refund, or they file a return, the IRS has denied their return, and now we have to go to court to either receive the refund back or we have to dispute the tax liability. So that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell. All things tax litigation.
Awesome. So people often like are afraid when they hear IRS, and they think always like IRS will be right. Like, so if something they say, okay, so I'll just pay, I'll just do this, I'll just forget about this money. And now I hear you saying that sometimes IRS has to return your money and they haven't yet returned it. So you help people go to court to get this money.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's right. So people, if you have a tax refund and you request a tax refund within the reasonable statute of limitations, which is 2 years from the date you paid the money or 3 years from the time you filed the refund, then at that point you can actually request a refund. It's a form 843. You request the refund from the IRS, or you can also do a amended tax return. If the IRS denies it or within 6 months they do not respond, you can actually go through and you can request that money back from the IRS in district court. In a district court, wherever you're located, if it's Florida, if it's Georgia, if it's Alabama, whatever district court you're located, you can request those refunds back and you can sue the IRS for your money back. And that's what we do.
Wow. And how often like people get their money back when you do this?
Very often, I normally have a really good process of doing a discovery to see if they actually qualify for their money back before I would take it to court, because district court is very expensive. It is, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of work to district court. So before I actually file the complaint in district court against the IRS, I verify that you're going to get some funds back. Or like even if you're just suing them for some reason. I had one corporation come to me about suing the IRS because IRS allowed a one of their agents had the news look at their returns, and they're not allowed to do that. So it's like $1,000 per return or per when they look at it, and they wanted to sue the IRS in district court. So they could have done that, but most of the time we see it was a refund, and it's very often when we go to court we get the refund back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So when someone actually when they get into the courts, like the other way around. So when IRS wants money from the person or the corporation, and how long does it take for them to finally, like now they have to go to court and the IRS actually take them to court? How
Yes.
long usually that takes?
So normally, of course, most of the time I see it when there's an audit. When there's an audit where the IRS is examining your tax returns and say, hey, you owe money, you didn't win the audit, so you owe, let's say, $10,000. You owe $10,000 to the IRS. And the IRS, what they do is they normally do a notice of deficiency. So you have 90 days to petition the tax court, or if you're out of the country, it's 150 days to petition the tax court. If you don't petition them, you lose your option to go to court. But if you do petition in time, you're talking about from that point, once you file the petition, it takes about 3 months for the IRS to come back and say, hey, let's see if we need to do a mediation, which that's an appeal, where they have an appeal officer will look at it with your tax attorney and say, hey, we can do this for your client. We looked at it. They do, they don't owe as much money, or they don't owe any money. If you don't get it resolved in the appeal process of the tax court, at that point, you get to the point of going to tax court where you actually got to defend yourself and go. I just went yesterday to tax court with the client that had a tax liability. So you get to actually, you have your time in court. So from in that time, it's probably about a year. Because of course, the IRS, the U.S. tax court judges do not come to all the states every month. They're not just there because they're in D.C. So they come to Georgia about 4 times a year. And so during that time, that's when we have a court. So right now, we had court in May. We don't have court again until September. So anyone who did not get in May will have to go in September. So this could be a year process. And it normally takes about a year for you to go from notice of deficiency to the actually going to the tax court, because there's so many different levels. And most of the time we try to settle, which is like 90% of the time you can settle it with the IRS appeals or the IRS attorneys, and you don't actually have to go to court. But some cases you do have to go to court, like yesterday I had to go to court.
Okay. So you saying the courts is not all year round? Like, so it's not like personal things. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, so it's like the summer, they do the summer, fall, spring, and I think a winter, like right before Christmas. And then so it's only like 4 times. They only come 4 times. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is it in every state like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So all of the tax court judges, they travel. They travel from DC. So they have certain areas that they travel to, and they travel doing that. Now they travel all the time, but we only see them in Georgia 4 times. Alabama may see them 4 times, something like that per year.
Oh.
That's why it takes so long for a U.S. tax court case.
Okay. So where can you represent people yourself and your office?
So I can represent people anywhere in federal. As long as it's federal, we can go anywhere in the United States. So I can represent in Alabama, because it's the same tax court judges, and it's the same tax court. Most of the tax courts are held at the federal buildings, right? Where the district court is, they're the federal building. So I can go anywhere and represent a client. Doesn't really matter.
Okay, that's interesting. So
except district court, except district court, when district court you have with a refund, it's different. You have to actually be, for district court, I have to be in that particular court. Like I'm a member of Georgia, Northern, Southern, Middle, and I think it's lower. Yeah, no, Georgia is Georgia, Northern, Middle, and Southern court. And then Alabama, because I'm actually barred there as well, I can represent clients there. And then, but if you have like another case where it's district court, we have so many attorneys in our office that can actually sit, I can do pro hoc vice, which means I can go in, they'll allow me to go into their state and represent you and then leave their state after I'm done representing you. So yeah. So pretty much kind of everywhere, but still district is a little bit different than, I don't need anybody for tax court, but district court, I will need someone who is actually barred as an attorney in that particular state.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So, do you recall like any interesting case, like can give people like an understanding of what worst case scenario could happen in a
Worst
courts?
case scenario in court. I think, I'm most of the time I only go to court off of not documentation. I go to court off of law. It's better to do that because with documentation you can work with the IRS attorneys and everybody can come up to a happy medium. But when it comes down to law and how you're interpreting the law, that's the cases that really are a big situation. Let me tell you this case yesterday. So we have husband and wife who are they rent out properties they rent out properties. They are both have full-time jobs. They both work full-time jobs. So there's an issue where if you are you rent out properties, you have what they call passive income, which income where you don't actually truly work actively in that business. It's not material, truly working in that business. So if you don't work truly in that business, you only can take that income, that loss from other passive losses, which means you don't actually work in the business, right? Full time. So if you have a full-time job, both have a full-time job, it's hard to get all those losses. You got to carry them over to the next year. So it's hard getting all the losses. That was the issue I had yesterday with my client, is that they both were full-time employees. They rented out a property, but they also they was not considered real estate professionals. So they couldn't take all of the income. They only could take up to a certain amount, and then they still have to be over $100,000. Over $100,000, they can't take all of it. It has to be reduced down. So it's a lot. That is a huge case to win. That's one of the most serious cases to win in tax court. So I'm not going to go unless I truly know I can win that case. And the issue is I have is that the reason why I went to court, one of the husband has a license. He's a real estate agent. That's how I'm end up winning the case, because of that.
That's awesome. Good luck with that. Like,
Thank you. Thank you. I'm waiting for the judge's decision. So thank you very much.
yeah, awesome. So, like, I know we can talk about this forever, and I
Yes.
know people like don't have the knowledge they need in order to actually be prepared for any tax situation, and that's what we're trying to do here. And we're going to be right back with Josie, but now we're going to be talking about tax professionals. I know we have a lot to cover, so this is Echoes of Impact with Noura. We'll be right back.